Okay, so thank you guys, everyone, for joining. I really appreciate you all sending your replies back to me. I know I probably bombard everybody with emails, but it's greatly appreciated, especially with everyone here. So I've known Julie for quite a long time, actually. We've met up many times before. She's actually a mum of one of my close friends. And I've worked with her as I was really passionate about sleep, and we've done a lot of work together. And actually, I was with her or friends with her when she first started Nurture to Sleep. I was involved in the process, which was really lovely. So Julie's the founder and leading senior sleep consultant of Nurture to Sleep. She has over 30 years of medical experience and has participated in many events. She was at Sleep Expo, and she's often, I don't know if you listen to Dubai Eye or Virgin Radio, she's often on there. Her and Helen have deep discussions about sleep very often. So Julie, if that's okay, I'm going to hand over to you and we can make a start.
Yeah, absolutely. I was one of those people who, for example, could function really, really well on 4 hours sleep a night. And I really could function. You know, I was a midwife and I'd be up all night on night duty, and then I come home to my 3 daughters and just stay up the rest of the day. And I really was functioning. But the more and more I learned about the science of sleep, the more I realized that actually I wasn't functioning at any optimal level. And if we're looking, you know, within sleep and the workplace, it does have a really huge impact, but an impact on all our lives and in terms of our decision-making process. And it's that decision-making process that can really make a huge difference when it comes to whether we're dealing in the workplace or we're dealing at home. Okay, so we'll just go to the first slide. And the first slide, as we said, was a little bit about us and Nurture to Sleep. And I have 2 colleagues now working with me, which is very exciting. And one of the most exciting parts of my entire career is going to happen in June, where I've been invited as the only non-doctor to this huge medical conference to speak about sleep in the States. So I do think that is really significant in that we are really understanding about the benefits of sleep and the importance of sleep more and more. So that's just a caveat of who we are. I thought this is and there's, I'm sure you've seen it, there is a whole list and series of research available pointing out how sleep impacts, excuse me, sleep impacts the workplace. And this is a huge sum. 136 billion is lost in productivity when it comes to the workplace and poor sleep. Now, has anyone any idea why sleep can have such a big impact? Anyone? Because this has got to be as interactive as possible, because only then can you take away this information. And because we know it needs to be heard 3 times before we actually absorb it and process this information and store it.
Yes, Sandy has written lack of focus and poor decision making.
Lack of focus in particular. And we also know that when we are sleep deprived, our cognitive function is severely impaired. And yet, as you said, a decision-making process is really relevant when it comes to poor sleep, and we cannot underestimate it. I just thought to lighten the mood a little bit that we'd look at some fun facts around sleep. I'm sure we've all heard about 1/3 of our life is spent around sleep. And although I'm not anywhere near 60 years of marriage yet, but I do think if you've been married for 60 years, so thinking about your parents, 21.5 of those years were spent sleeping. So sleep's actually really, really important. And again, there has to be a reason why we sleep that long. You know, Mother Nature just doesn't just provide the sleep for nothing. It has a very important focus. And now, in terms of the 7 to 9 hours, a lot of what we hear is about our sweet spot should be 8 hours. We all should be aiming for 8 hours. But actually that's really quite unhelpful, because we know that a sleep cycle is 1.5 hours. And if we are waking up at the 8 hours, then we're actually waking up in the middle of a sleep cycle. And that's really not helping. We're waking up feeling groggy. So it's very much about looking at our sleep needs. And some of us are 7-hour sleepers, and some of us are 8-hour sleepers, 9-hour sleepers. So it's finding what is our functional optimal rate that we sleep at. I am a 7-hour sleeper, whereas my eldest daughter and my husband, they're definitely 9 hours. And up until very recently, there was lots of conversations around the fact that, you know, can we sleep too much? And there was quite a lot of research to say, absolutely, we can sleep too much. But now there's more and more research coming in and saying, no, we can't, because it's very much about how we are functioning. And some people do need 10 hours sleep, and then that's enough for them. So the research is changing, and it is evolving. With the more technology that we have, the research is changing. Of course, well, you wouldn't have thought that elephants sleep less than any other animals because of their size, but they absolutely do. And why 10 minutes is key to falling asleep is, later on, you know, as a kind of last conversation, we'll be having a look at the 3-2-1 framework, where it's a sleep hack, if you like. But the 10 minutes is really important, because that's ensuring that we have enough sleep pressure and our body has dialed down in order to stay asleep. So we don't actually want to fall asleep immediately. We need that winding down in order for us to be aware of how we have fallen asleep, and then that's going to impact the rest of our night's sleep. So around 10 minutes is as helpful as it can be. Okay, I think we'll move on from the fun facts.
Is it okay to ask questions throughout?
Yeah, of course, please. Yeah.
So in those 10 minutes to prepare for sleep, does that include brushing your teeth and washing your face and all that stuff? Or do you need to sit in bed and think about sleep or something?
Yeah, no, that 10 minutes is actually when you are in bed. And it's almost like, as I say, you're dialing your brain down in order to make sense of the rest of the night, in order for it to be conducive to a really positive night's sleep. Whereas if you go into bed with the expectation, so say you go to bed really late, excuse me, and you're hoping, okay, I'm going to fall asleep and I need to get to sleep, that invariably, you haven't allowed that wind down time. So it's going to impact and disrupt the rest of your night's sleep. And when we talk about, you know, the brushing of the teeth and all of that is part of your routine, which should take roughly around 20 to 30 minutes. But as I say, we'll get into that later. And that's one of the last hacks, if you like, that we will leave with, about how we can, what are the strategies for a really positive night's sleep.
Including that 10 minutes will you cover later?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Anyone else? Now, I'm just looking to see if there's anything specifically relevant. Post-lunchtime sleep. Post-lunchtime sleep, and again, if we're looking at industry and in the workplace, this is very real, because the post-lunchtime is very much about a biological dip in our circadian rhythm. And we know that if we're looking at our circadian rhythm, the circadian rhythm is one of the main systems that we have in order to fall asleep. So there are 2 systems that we need for sleep. So I'm going to ask you, Olivia, what are the 2 systems that we need for sleep?
Oh, Julie. Our circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
And, I don't know.
Okay, so the 2 systems that we need for sleep, the first system, as we talked about, was the circadian rhythm, or is the circadian rhythm. Now, this is so important. And the reason why it's so important is because we have a group of cells that sit just behind the eye. And these group of cells are called the suprachiasmatic nuclei, so SCN. And this SCN is like the master clock that sits here. and it tells all the other clocks in our body what time of day it is. Now, does anybody know how many clocks in our body we have that report to this master clock? Olivia? You really have forgotten.
I really have.
Well, that's
I'm
all right.
going with 15.
15. Anyone else?
2 eyes, 2.
We've actually got 37.
Oh.
37 clocks. So can you imagine if one of these clocks are out in our body, then it knocks everything else out. But most importantly, if the information that is going through our eyes to the group of cells just behind the eyes, if that is not an accurate time of day of what it is, then that is going to knock all these other clocks out. So what that means is, for example, if we watch the screen, and that's why the screen is so bad for sleep, if we watch the screen at half an hour or 1 hour before we go to bed, the blue light that's emitted from the screen is telling that group of cells it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because the brain perceives it as the sky, and the sky is only blue during the day. So that circadian rhythm is totally knocked out. So all the other cells are really struggling to do what they should be doing at the right time. So one more, well, there's 2 more further explanations when we come to the circadian rhythm. So the circadian rhythm is where the sleep hormone, anyone know what the sleep hormone that starts our sleep, that signals to the brain when it's time to sleep?
Melatonin or serotonin or whatever it is?
Melatonin. Melatonin. So melatonin is the hormone that is released into the brain to signal the brain to get ready for sleep. Now, from birth to the age of 11 years, that melatonin comes in at 6 o'clock every single night, regardless of where we are, up until we're about 11. So it comes in at 6 in preparation for our children to go to sleep around 7, which I know is very early. But if we're looking at all the neuroscience data, is telling us that the optimal hour for children to sleep from 12 weeks until 11 is actually 7 o'clock. Now, for us as adults, the optimum time, the melatonin is literally turned on like a tap. And that comes into our body around 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. So if we're watching the screen at 10 o'clock, or if we're looking, at our emails at 10 o'clock, that is telling the brain, which then in turn will tell the body, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, if we're traveling with work, of course that clock is out, but once we're on the time zone of wherever we are, then that's reverting back to our melatonin coming into the body around 9:30, 10 o'clock, in order for us to be asleep, feeling sleepy around 10:30, 11 o'clock. So any questions around the circadian rhythm?
How do changes in lifestyle routine impact those rhythms? Because you get invited for dinner one night, and then another day you go to bed a bit earlier, or you get off a plane and the timings change. So does it flex and move? Well,
no. This all goes back to evolution. So evolution moves at a very slow pace. Now, we all sleep in sleep cycles, and with these sleep cycles, as an adult, our sleep cycle, like I was saying before, is around 90 minutes. And that's why it's either a 7 or 9 hour sleep. So we sleep in sleep cycles. And for adults, it's 90 minutes. For most of our children, it's about an hour. And it doesn't become an hour and a half until much nearer adulthood, until the brain has finished growing. So the reason why we sleep in sleep cycles was very much to keep us safe. Now, at the very beginning of the night, when we commence our falling asleep into our biggest chunk of sleep, we get our greatest shot of adrenaline and cortisol because it puts the brain on high alert. So it's making sure that because we're going into our biggest chunk of sleep, that we are not going to be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. And then the sleep cycle is there, an hour and a half. We have a mini wake up, an hour and a half, and a mini wake up. If the reason why the hour and a half and the mini wake up is there, it's so we can check that there is no saber-toothed tiger, and we can go on to our next sleep cycle. So that's why the clock moves around very slowly. So if we, go to bed very late one night, get up early in the morning, and then at the weekend, for example, we are sleeping in later, that's commonly known as social jet lag. Now, what that means is, where we were saying that the melatonin comes in around 10:30 at night, 9:30, 10:30 at night, if we alter our bedtime, say we go to bed, normally we go to bed about 10:30, and then at the weekend, we might go to bed, I don't know, maybe 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then sleep in later. That's where social jet lag happens. And it's the equivalent of us getting on a plane in New York and getting off that plane in Florida. So we've gone through 2 time zones. The brain has gone through 2 time zones. And then when we come back and it's Monday morning, we're actually really sleep deprived because the brain has not had enough time to get back and readjust to the time zone. So we are really inhibiting the elements that we need for deep sleep.
We've got a question from Brajesh. Brajesh, it's been a long time, my friend. Over to you, hero.
How are you, Pete?
Very well, thank you.
I have a small question, regarding this sleep alarm clock automatic in the body. Sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not working. But for example, my mother, she's 74. For her, it is perfectly working every day. So for example, sometimes I tell my body that, okay, I need to wake up tomorrow 6 o'clock in the morning. So I know I don't need alarm. I wake up at 6 a.m. But sometimes it doesn't work. So what is the reason? It's a stress or overworking or what?
Stress plays a huge part. And like I said, we need to keep the information going into the brain as accurate as the time outside. So for example, if you were out having a walk outside at 6:30 in the evening, the light will tell the brain and confirm with the brain it's 6:30 in the evening, not 6:30 in the morning. So that's the first thing. Another huge factor which impacts our internal clock is any kind of screen time. Remember me saying that gives off the blue light and it totally disrupts when we should be waking and when we should be sleeping. So having a routine and having a consistent wake up and consistent bedtime is one of the most significant factors that is going to guarantee that we have good sleep quality. So when you say that sometimes you can wake up at 6 o'clock when you need to, the chances are you are better rested. So if you can wake before your alarm goes off, that suggests that you are rested sufficiently that you don't need that alarm clock to wake you up. But on the other hand, it could also suggest that you are so anxious about waking up at 6 o'clock that it's actually impacted your sleep. So it's about recognizing how well you slept that night and then using that information that it was because you were stressed, and then having practical skills at the beginning of the night that is going to ensure that you are getting that good quality sleep. Because it's not so much about quantity, but it is very much about quality.
Got it. Thank you, Julia.
Okay. So just one more thing, and it's not meant to scare anybody, because it is, but it is scary. And there's a very famous Liverpudlian, and as a Manchester United supporter, it gives me a little bit of pain, but there we are. He is one of the leading neuroscientists in the world, and he's called
Oh, I think we've frozen. Let me just touch base with her.
Right on a cliffhanger there, hasn't she?
I know. I didn't know if she was pausing to see if anyone knew the name.
You.
Oh, you're there, Julie.
Yeah, I could hear you. I could hear you. Oh, yeah. Sorry, it just said the internet connection was unstable. So, Olivia, leading neuroscientist in the world, who's Liverpudlian. Okay, Matthew Walker. And he is a professor. Yeah, and do you know something? He's the first neuroscientist that
Another cliffhanger.
manipulated,
This is going to be painful.
which hasn't gone down too well. Oh, that's. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back, Julie.
Yeah. So what I was saying about Matthew Walker was that a lot of the information, some of his studies, he's almost manipulated them. So in the neuroscience world, he's not that popular, but everyone is very appreciative how he has brought sleep to the table. And his book really does read like a horror story. And one of the pieces of research, and this has now really been backed up by a whole host of people, one of them being Russell Foster, who is a professor at Oxford, really incredible neuroscientist as well. So when the clocks go forward, and interestingly, the clocks are about to go back this weekend in England, but when the clocks go forward in all the countries that participate in daylight saving, there is an increase of strokes and heart attacks by up to 24 to 26%. So when the clocks go back and we get an extra hour's sleep, there is a fall in strokes and heart attacks by 21 to 22%. So going back to our circadian rhythm, that's why these strokes and heart attacks happen, because our circadian rhythm is impacted. Going back to your question about, if we go late and stay up late and so on, it does impact the circadian rhythm is very fragile. Bless you. Okay, but isn't that really frightening to think that 1 hour difference? And the other thing here, which is also quite interesting when it comes to industry, on the Monday morning, when the clocks have gone forward and people have lost an hour's sleep, within the workplace, employees spend 1 hour or more kind of couch surfing. So not using their time efficiently in the workplace. So again, something to be mindful of. Right, so why sleep is important. So
Julie, sorry, just very quickly, Sandy just had a quick question there, saying, are there any age groups which are more vulnerable around the heart issues?
Yes. For males, it's 50 to 60. And for vulnerable around the heart issues, we know from all the research that strokes and heart attacks occur, 60% of them occur between early morning, say 5 o'clock in the morning, and midday. So once you've gone past midday, then you can push that away a little bit. But that, again, is evidence-based. Strokes and heart attacks are more likely to occur around those timings, 5 a.m. in the morning and midday. And again, it's all due to the circadian rhythm and to our clock being knocked out. And when the clock is knocked out, it's meaning that the heart, for example, the timings have been knocked out, the blood supply to the heart, the pumping, all of those things are influenced. So it is relevant. So, and so we know, like we're saying, sleep is important because of our health. Can anybody give me another reason why sleep is important?
Our mind also wants rest, correct?
Absolutely, really important for our brain. And we also know now, again, so much research, the less sleep we have, the more we increase our likelihood of Alzheimer's and dementia. And there is a very definite reason for that. So when we go to sleep at night, it's almost like a dishwasher system has gone on. It's almost like, you know, when we go to bed and the dustbin men or the trash, they come and pick everything up. That's exactly what happens to our brains when we sleep. So there has been a protein, amyloid, it's a protein called protein amyloid, and that has been identified as causing Alzheimer's. So when we go to sleep at night, as I say, it's like a dishwasher has been turned off. So the plates go in the dishwasher, they're full of debris. We set the program, and then when that program is finished, we open the dishwasher and everything is clean and sparkling. And that's what happens to our brain. So again, it's like a plumbing system. So if we have good enough sleep, when we wake up in the morning, our brain is cleared and ready to take on new information for the day. So absolutely, when we sleep, memory restoration happens. Now, when we sleep, there are different phases to our sleep. So in the early part of the night is where we have that deep sleep. And in the deep sleep is where our memory restoration is being rebuilt. And then in the earlier part of the morning, that's where we have more REM sleep, so rapid eye movement sleep. And that rapid eye movement sleep is very much about an emotional band-aid. So that helps us process all our emotions during the day. Now, lots of us are thinking, well, if that deep sleep is so important, can I reduce my REM sleep and have more deep 3 or delta sleep in stage 3 and 4? But actually the human body and the human brain doesn't work like that. Every phase within our one sleep cycle has a purpose. So in our one sleep cycle of 90 minutes, there are 5 phases. So stage 1, light sleep. Stage 2, lighter. Stage 3, now we're into a deeper sleep. And stage 4, also deep sleep for memory restoration and immune building. Stage 5 is our REM, so rapid eye movement. But we can't have stage 4 without stage 1. We can't have REM without stage 2. So every one of these phases within that one sleep cycle is really important. So going back to why sleep is important, absolutely for our memory and keeping us safe and healthy, keeping our hearts healthy. Do you know that if on average for 1 week that males have, if you have as a male, if you have between 5 and 6 hours for 1 week sleep per night, do you know that your testicle shrinks by 10 years? So that means you have the virility of a male 10 years your senior. So sleep is really important. I think there is a strong correlation as to why we're seeing a lot of infertility now. Now, women don't get off scot-free either. We, as females, when we have less sleep, we age a lot more. So there's a definite benefit for gaining our sleep as to why sleep is important. I think I might have stunned people when I've said about our scrotums or your scrotums shrinking by 10%, but it's something to be. So again, why sleep is important. Okay, I think this is probably a good time that we break off, Olivia, because I'm very aware that I am so passionate about my sleep and I have so much information, but actually it's a bit of an overload, isn't it? And apologies. So if we can now break off and have a talk about the conversation and the questions that I've sent.
Yeah, so I'm going to share those in the chat group now. So this is just a quick questionnaire. I'm going to break you into some breakout rooms just to explore some of the questions. It's a little bit of a topic discussion. And then, Julie, how long would you like for this? And then we can bring everybody back in.
I think 15 minutes.
Right. Okay, just doing that now. If everybody has downloaded the questionnaire, it's just in the chat. If you have any issues, just let me know.
Yeah, Olivia, this seems to be opening up a music folder. So we've got Girl Scout karaoke and Beetlejuice and things.
Well, that's what you've been assigned to in your room. Is that okay?
Fair enough.
Let me just send that again.
For me. It did open for me.
Yeah, I got the right one as well. But I want the one that I want. The other one.
Yeah,
I do too. I do too.
All right, let me break you all away before Simon says something else.
Fair enough.
And if the Zoom drops down at all, just go back into the previous link and that will bring us back in as well.
Yeah. You reckon, Pete, you've got 100% in the quiz?
I actually managed to achieve 130%, which has never been done before.
You must have had a good night's sleep last night then.
I did actually. Unusually.
Okay. So question number 1, how many times a day is your body programmed to feel sleepy?
Ooh.
Answers in the chat.
I think twice.
Very good. Why twice?
Because I've been reading some great articles. In fact, I'll post one in the group about the old medieval habit of the first sleep and the second sleep, but also the idea that we are supposed to have 2 sleeps a day.
Now, again, that's really interesting. It's called biphasic. That's what we're talking about here when it comes to sleep. But there's actually a number of other communities where they didn't, depending where they are in the world, that they would get up early. Like the Amish tribe, for example, they never had biphasic sleep because their day would be governed by, their day and night is governed by light. So it wasn't, yes, of course, there are lots of information out there about the biphasic, but with this feeling sleepy is much more about our natural biological dip or biological rhythm. And so it doesn't matter how much sleep you've had the night before, around midday, when you have that, you'll naturally feel sleepy. And at bedtime, that's when you're going, those are the 2 times where you will naturally feel sleepy. Somewhere between 1 and 4 o'clock, which is really interesting. Before ever I got interested in sleep, I noticed with Kieran, because Kieran and I have been together a very long time, he would definitely get sleepy around 3 o'clock. And I'd think, come on, Mallon, wake up. But it is. And the more I get into sleep, the more I understand about it. So yes, so twice is when you would have those natural rhythms and when you would feel sleepy. So yeah, that's good. And then which group needs up to 13 hours sleep per night? Which group? 13 hours.
44-year-old white male living in Dubai.
No. It's our preschoolers, it's our toddlers. So our sleep requirement changes as we grow. And, babies at the very beginning, our newborns, for brain development, they need somewhere between 15 and 18-19 hours. There's a huge, gap there. There's a huge change. Some babies need more and some others don't. So for example, if a baby's been born by a cesarean section, they generally need 1 hour less sleep. And not many parents know that. But yeah, so on average, a C-section baby, 1 hour less sleep. But pre-toddler, 13 hours, and that's split into two, where you have night sleep and then you have the nap. For teenagers, again, they actually need more sleep than most teenagers are getting, which is really worrying. But and then as adults, we still need that 7 to 9 hours sleep. Okay, well, adults need less sleep as they grow older. True or false? So basically, poor sleep is not a normal part of aging. And it is about quality sleep. It's not that we need less, because as we get older, there is a buildup of that beta amyloid, and we do need to make sure that that is clearing out as much. Now, our sleep tends to differ because as we get older, we get less deep sleep, so less of the deep 3. But again, lifestyle will impact that also. So it's not that we need less sleep, it's just the quality of our sleep changes.
Julie, I have one question.
Yeah.
Brijesh here. This 2 times in a day, for example, one quick power nap during afternoon for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, like Japan, as per Japanese culture. So this thing, I believe it is directly related with the productivity of individuals, because if we do that persistently, then our productivity may increase. So are we within the UAE or within this part of the world, do we require huge cultural transformation through which we can allow people to have 10 to 15 minutes of rest after lunch or in the office, basically?
Really, really interesting. Thank you for bringing that up. So we know that the nap can be extremely helpful for increasing our productivity. And again, there has been so many studies. And you know, a number of years ago, there was people like Price Waterhouse, there was Google, and they were having these nap rooms. And in fact, in London, they do have nap rooms where you can go in, you can take a 30-minute power nap, and then you go back to work. And time again, the studies have shown that it has increased productivity exponentially and is really important for your, your work output. Now, if we are looking at the nap, again, we need to see how and when to take the best nap. So when I was saying at the very beginning, there are 2 systems that we need for sleep. The first system is our circadian rhythm, which is about light. And the second is called sleep pressure. Now, this basically means the longer we stay awake, the sleepier we become. So that's why, we get up in the morning and by, 10, 11 o'clock, we've built up sufficient sleep pressure in order for us to have a good night's sleep. Now, depending on when you take that nap, it can interrupt or impact our sleep pressure. So if you take a nap late in the afternoon, say at 6 o'clock, late afternoon, somewhere between 5 and 6, or if you fall asleep on the sofa about 7 at night for an hour, then you have really impacted your sleep pressure. And that is going to have an impact on your night's sleep, meaning you haven't built up enough of a sleep drive to connect all your sleep cycles throughout the night. So looking at when you have that nap is very, very important. Now, every single person is different. If I was to have a nap in the afternoon, I don't know, say about 3 o'clock, for me, that could impact my sleep. So I wouldn't do it. Whereas my husband, he can have it at 6 o'clock and he's actually quite fine. But 7 o'clock, if he sleeps on the sofa, if he's had a really early start, definitely that impacts his sleep. So it's looking at how it impacts you. Now, looking at the duration. Go on.
So sorry to interrupt you. For some people, I know, like if they have coffee or cup of tea after 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., they will not be able to sleep properly. For example, my wife, she never has cup of tea or coffee after 6 p.m. say. And again, coming back to the same question for kids, like for example, not kids, like nearby adulthood, those children who are around 15 in age, how to inculcate that behavior to them so that they at least, because they don't want to sleep when they come back from the school, they want to play, they have lots of other agendas like to study and all. So how to inculcate that behavior?
Okay, that's a completely different question. So let's just finish with the naps first, because it is really important in that looking at the duration of a nap can be very helpful at keeping your cortisol levels down, improving your sleep during the night, as long as you don't nap for too long and at the wrong time. Now, when we say too long, according to NASA, the perfect nap is 26 minutes, according to NASA. Now, so that's your nap. But again, if I was to nap for 26 minutes, for me, that's too long, definitely. So it has to be unique to you. Now, there is something out there that we call the nappuccino. Now, what that means is that you would have a cup of coffee right before you take your 15, 20-minute nap, so that when you wake up, the caffeine is kicked in and you wake up alert and ready to go. So that's something that is quite helpful. So it's that nappuccino. So that's in relation to your nap question. So naps are good, but as long as it doesn't impact your nighttime sleep, because your nighttime sleep is much more valuable than the daytime sleep. Nighttime sleep is restorative, and that's what protects the heart and the immune system and all those other things. So you mustn't compromise your night sleep in order for taking a nap. And as I say, according to NASA, the perfect nap duration is 26 minutes. Is there any more questions around naps?
No, thank you so much. But only for these kids, if you can please remember this question, then we can deal with it later on.
So when I was saying before about our circadian rhythm and when it starts, so every evening, the circadian rhythm for babies from birth, from 12 weeks until 11, that starts around 6 o'clock in the evening. Then once children hit puberty, preteen and teenagers, there is a huge shift in their biological clock. And the melatonin doesn't come in till somewhere around 11 o'clock at night, and it can be as late as 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. So we are expecting our teenagers to sleep when it is biologically impossible for them to sleep. So you know, anyone out there with teenagers, you've really got to hear them when they say they just can't sleep, because they can't. It is physiologically impossible for them to go to bed, say at, 9:30, 10 o'clock, which we as adults would be thinking about 9:30, 10:30, not in bed at 9:30, but certainly 10:30 that we'd be looking at. And it's very interesting because the research has only been made available, as early as the late 1960s by an American psychologist. So for our children, for our teenagers, what they're doing before bedtime is one of the most critical factors when it comes to helping them with their sleep. Okay?
For example?
Coming off the screen. But also having a routine, looking, we look at the 3 pillars of health, are exercise, sleep, and nutrition. And so without those 3, we're not going to be able to sleep well. So again, they need to be addressed, but it's very, very important that it is collaborative. I mean, Benjamin Franklin has a wonderful quote where he says, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." So it's about really getting them on board with why they need to sleep.
Coincidentally, I just put that quote last week on one of my LinkedIn articles.
Really?
Yeah.
I just think it's a great quote for us all to live by, but particularly, when we have young children. It's a great role model from the very beginning.
Julie,
so, yeah.
I've got a question. First of all, I'd like to say thanks very much for the time so far. It's been brilliant to listen to. And my question is around naps. So why and you mentioned about yourself and your husband, how you're different there. Why do some people, almost need naps or have naps? And why can some people perhaps go throughout the whole day running on a full tank?
Okay, so it's very much about sleep pressure. And so some person's sleep pressure builds up faster than others. So my sleep pressure builds up slower, but I also think it's due to my chronotype. So there's been quite a lot at present because it's a great marketing ploy at the minute, but there is some science behind it. And originally the main emphasis and science behind it is about two groups, which is larks and owls, chronotypes of larks and owls. I'm definitely an owl. So my melatonin, the tap is turned on much later for me. Whereas my husband, for example, his melatonin is turned on early, as is my first daughter. So he's definitely a lark. So he wakes up earlier, and so his drive to sleep is faster. So that's why he gets more sleepy, as does. So that's why when it comes to naps. But it could also be that, you know, you're just not getting enough sleep during the day. And then, of course, one of the big issues, which I think plays a part in all our lifestyles, is we are having too much caffeine, which is resulting in what we call a caffeine crash. Now, again, just looking at how caffeine impacts our sleep. And there's two things here. So there was a very big study carried out where there was a group of spiders and they were exposed to 4 stimulants, you know, so LSD, crack, coffee, and marijuana. So there was 4 in total. So the spiders were exposed to these 4 stimulants. They then went off and they constructed their web. Now, of those 4 stimulants, which was the one that was least recognizable by the spider's web? That was least recognizable. So if you think you've got marijuana, LSD, crack, caffeine. It was so erratic, there was no pattern. And it's just showing you the impact. You know, it's the only legal stimulant that we actually give to our children, okay, you might not give coffee, but we do give caffeine to them. You know, caffeine is in so many things. Caffeine's in ice cream. So we do need to be looking at where caffeine is. It's very hidden in our foods these days. But let's just go back to coffee and why that can impact our sleep pressure and that drive. So every morning when we wake up, there is a certain number of neurotransmitters that are empty. And as the day wears on, as our sleep pressure builds, these neurotransmitters get full. Now, one of these neurotransmitters is a neurotransmitter called adenosine. Now, where coffee or caffeine makes us feel alert is because for every cup of coffee we have, that blocks your adenosine. So it blocks it. So the pressure is beginning to build up, the sleep pressure. We have a coffee and it blocks it. We have another coffee, blocks it. But at some point, it's like a dam. We can't keep that adenosine back any longer. And that's when you have that really horrid sleep, you know, adenosine crash. So that's what impacts a lot of our sleepiness throughout the day. And then, of course, there's lack of movement. You know, we don't move enough, especially now, we're much more sedentary. So we need to be, you know, up. A really good thing to stop feeling sleepy in that sleep pressure is to move. Just get up, walk around, move, up, walk around, and then come back. You know, those are the kind of things. Even have some water. The water helps when our glucose goes down, that makes us feel sleepy. So yeah, so things like that impact too. Any more questions?
Thanks so much. Not to be selfish, but with the comment about coffee there, is there a particular time where it's better to drink coffee than not? Because I saw a funny sketch yesterday around how, you know, people have become obsessed with coffee, that they probably make a coffee even before they might brush their teeth in the morning. So it's almost part of people's morning routines. I guess it's a part question really. What impact does that have, having coffee in the morning? And is there a particular time in the day where it's better to have it?
So where I was talking before about Matthew Walker, this incredible neuroscientist, and some of his research has upset quite a few people, and one of them was very much around coffee. Now, when the book was published about 5 years ago, you know, he said that coffee was terrible and we mustn't. But even he has now started to come back and say, actually, we need to look again at coffee. But basically what we have to recognize is the coffee bean is a great, it's a really good, perfect food in that as an antioxidant, it's a really of great benefit to us, but it's how we use it. You know, again, you were saying that we have it before we even get up and, you know, before we brush our teeth. It is the second highest commodity that is sold worldwide, oil being the first. So, you know, there is a real coffee culture now developing. In terms of when is the best time, we all have a sensitivity to it. But again, they did a number of studies where they were looking at 3 groups of people. One group of people said if they drank coffee after 12 o'clock, it would really ruin their sleep, their night's sleep. Another group said 6 o'clock, I'm absolutely fine up until 6, but then I can't have it. And then the third group of people were saying, doesn't matter, if I had coffee before I went to bed at 12 o'clock at night, I'm fine. So they brought all these groups of people in and they did all these incredible, wonderful sleep studies by putting the electrodes on their head and then doing the gold standard of sleep study, so the polysomnography. And that picks up your stage 1, your REM, and of course your deep sleep. And that's what was most significant. The people who had coffee, most of them who had coffee after 12 o'clock, those were the ones whose quality of sleep was severely impacted. So their deep 3 sleep was considerably less. And they thought, no, I'm fine. But looking at the studies, no. So in effect, or in essence, caffeine or coffee has a shelf life of 6 hours, but it's like medication. You know, some people can take 2 paracetamol and it do nothing. And then other people can take it and it makes such a difference. So it's where you are in terms of your sensitivity. But definitely it's got a shelf life of six hours, and it can severely impact, even though you think it doesn't. Any more questions around caffeine and coffee?
Very interesting. Thanks.
It is, isn't it? When you think of the culture now, and you think of our teenagers, they're hanging around in the coffee shops because it's cool, but they're not equipped with the information as to how it can impact their night's sleep. And if we think about their brain development, it's enormous. I mean, we know that within our lifetime, there are 3 really huge areas of cognitive and intellectual growth. So the first one is from conception to birth. The second one is birth to 3. And then the final one is 10 to 13. Now, of course, that's not to say that we don't keep growing and learning, we do, but we're talking about the plasticity of the brain. So it is very, very important. And that's why the more people know about sleep, the better, you know, how we understand it. Okay. Okay, let's go on about the questions. So where were we up to?
Hi, Julie. Thank you so far. It's been really great. Olivia, can I just jump in with a quick question?
Of course.
I just wanted to ask you, earlier on, you mentioned about bedtime routine and all of those rituals that become important. I'm a really bad sleeper. I've always been a fussy sleeper, darkness, earplugs, takes me hours to get to sleep, to the point of now being on sleeping pills for several years. And obviously this is a cycle I'm looking to break. But of course, there's got to be some tools that one can use to improve all of this, and possibly relates back to that sleep time routine you were mentioning earlier.
So just to put some things in context, one of the eldest children that I have slept coached is 19, he's 19 with sleep problems. And he'd gone through a series of 12 sessions with a psychologist. That hadn't worked. He then went to, so he's at university in London, a really good university, and it hadn't worked at all. He went to his GP on campus, honestly, a really bright boy, played on the football team, you know, very athletic, and you just wouldn't think that he had any issues at all, but it was all anxiety related. Excuse me, anxiety related. He went to the GP, and the campus GP gave him sleeping tablets. Now, I'm not exaggerating. If I had been in London, I would have gone to that GP. Excuse me, sorry. And I would have said, gosh, I'm really sorry. Anyway, I would have said to him what a lazy GP he was, because we know the gold standard for treating insomnia, all the research is out there, it is cognitive behavioural therapy. And I know, and I don't live in London, but I know of 3 very good CBTI therapists in London. And in England, or in the UK, CBTI is available on prescription. So we need to be looking at the most appropriate and the most effective. The research is very clear. For insomnia, CBTI, cognitive behavioural therapy, is what is important, what is the most effective treatment for insomnia. The thing about sleeping tablets and why they don't work, and I really want you to work so hard at coming off them, is because they don't improve the quality of your sleep. It's basically taking a hammer to, you know, to break a nut. It just induces sedation. And there's different types of sleeping tablets which long-term have a very negative impact, particularly the benzene group. You know, and thank you for being honest that you're on them, so great. But you want to be looking at other things. There's lots of natural supplements that we can take, and this is for all of us. So one of the supplements that we can take, so if you have a brain that is worry, and you can't stop your brain, you can't calm your brain down, that generally can be that there is a neurotransmitter. It's got a very long name, but basically it's called GABA. And you can buy GABA in your chemist as a supplement. And that very often calms the brain down and helps you sleep better. So do you know about that? Do you know about GABA?
No, I don't. I mean, the thing with sleeping tablets is also that they stop working after a period of time. So instead of, they just keep switching them. And when we were in the chat room, I was saying, like, I don't know if we get nightmares or dreams, because I don't think I do dream or have nightmares, because it's a different kind of sleep. You sleep and then you wake up, you're still tired. I don't know. It's something different.
Definitely.
But yeah, no, thank you for mentioning that. I'll look into it for sure.
So you've got GABA, which is a really good neurotransmitter. You've got HT5, which is also a very good neurotransmitter and helpful for sleep. And then this one, and magnesium. Have you tried taking magnesium? Has anyone tried taking magnesium for sleep? You have, yeah. So magnesium is known as the sleep mineral. Now, why magnesium is so important for sleep is it relaxes the central nervous system. And with magnesium, here in Dubai, as an example, far less so in the UK, but I don't know now, maybe things are changing. So in Dubai, at least 60% of our food is imported. And that means that it is picked before it's ripe. So it hasn't absorbed all the nutrients from the soil, and one of them being magnesium and zinc. And so when we are low, when we are deficient in magnesium, zinc, and vitamin D, of course, that really impacts how we sleep. So I would really look at taking magnesium. That can really help with your sleep. Now, when we're looking at how we take it, so if I'm looking at children and I've got an anxious little girl or little boy, I will suggest that they get some cream, and it's transdermal. So they use a cream for our children, obviously age appropriate, and you can put that on the skin. For us as adults, Of course, there's capsules that you can take, but if you were to have it, Epsom salts, for example, or magnesium flakes, if you have it in your bath, that is 5 times more effective than taking a capsule. And it's because our skin is the largest organ in our body. And of course, if we're having a bath and we're immersed in it for approximately 10 minutes, then we're absorbing all that magnesium. So that's a really helpful, those 3 supplements are really helpful. Okay.
Thanks.
How are we doing for time here?
Got 10 minutes left, Julie. I'm not sure we're going to get through all of the answers.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's fire them. Do you want to read them out, please? Olivia.
Yeah, sure. So number 4, how many times a day is your body programmed to feel sleepy?
Yep, we've done that.
Some answers. Oh, we've done that, sorry.
Yep.
Have you done the true and false? Number 5?
Yep. No.
Oh. How about your sleeping, about half your sleeping hours are spent dreaming, true or false?
Answer, anyone?
Half
Our
your
group said
sleeping
false.
hours.
Yeah.
False?
False. It's false. We spend about 20 to 25% of our night dreaming. And it's in the latter part, the early parts of the morning, because the first part is all about deep sleep, and then the latter is dreaming. And dreaming is absolutely impacted with sleeping tablets because we don't get the deep sleep. Okay, next one.
Which of the following is the most common cause of nightmares? Eating before going to bed, excessive alcohol consumption, stress and anxiety, or illness with a fever?
Which one? What would anybody say?
Stress and anxiety from Sam.
I think I said eating before bed, because with alcohol, I sleep really badly. Stress and anxiety, we don't sleep. So we just went on
all
to
of them, actually.
It's
all of them. All of the above.
That was a trick one. There's no all of the above.
Yeah.
Sleepwalking may incur other complex activities such as, may include other complex activities such as driving a car, moving furniture, eating, or all of the above.
Yeah,
What
all
would
of
you
the
say?
above.
Absolutely.
I think boringly we said all of the above.
No, it is absolutely true. All of the above. Next one.
Driving while drowsy is similar to driving while intoxicated. True or false? I would say true.
Anyone else? Absolutely true. And it's because our cognitive function is severely impaired. Okay, next one.
If you fall a few hours behind in the amount of sleep your body needs, can you ever make it up?
That's quite an interesting one, I think.
I'd say no.
We said yes.
Can't.
No, not even with a nap, with a good quality nap?
No, you can't make it up, because what happens is we reduce our deep sleep. So our deep sleep is impaired and our cortisol level rises, so we can't actually make it up. Yes, the nap will help because that keeps the cortisol level down, but you don't actually get that sleep cycle back. And each sleep cycle is really important to the entire overall night's sleep. So yeah, it's a myth that you can make up for it.
So
Julie, I have a question here.
Yeah.
Sorry, please continue.
Because when we were talking about it, we thought, well, we all go through those stages where we're working like demons at times, and we might be grabbing 4 hours sleep. But then we take time out, we take time away, we go on a holiday or we do a retreat or whatever it is, and we rest and recover and come back to peak performance and kind of peak rhythms again. So if we say we can never make it up, are we always then forever in deficit? And can we never get back to where we need to be?
So there's 2 things. One is that when we go away from, on holiday, and we go in, say we're in a hotel, or that sleep that we're taking is a different sleep. We don't sleep as well. Do you know how much of our sleep is impaired? Our sleep quality is reduced by 40% on that first and second night of our holiday. I find that really depressing. But seriously, the studies are there. And that study really came around by, sorry to admit this, but it was about Manchester United. And they had a sleep coach, and they were looking at how they were going to benefit their sleep. And there was a whole list of studies, because of course footballers were traveling a lot, and it was muscle repair, and cyclists, actually. Cyclists were also part of that study. And that's what they found. They had 40, sleep quality declined 40% on that first and possibly second night of sleep. And the way they got around that with the cyclists, they brought everything that they would normally have, so that say they stayed in a hotel, they would not use the hotel bed, but they would have one of their memory mattresses. So they mimicked everything that they would do back in wherever it was. And then they saw their success in racing really improve. Now, you said something so important, and I really want to emphasize this for my benefit too. It's not, we're all working and doing what we can. Do you know, when we have just one night where we sleep 4 hours, for me, this was very scary because I would do it often. But when we sleep, and honestly, this is evidence-based, this is no drama, or when we sleep 4 hours, a night where we've had 4 hours sleep, our cancer-killing cells, they drop by 70%. There is a reason why, cancer has gone up, and heart disease and all those things. I just think that's a huge percentage. So when we go to bed at night, the body releases these cancer-fighting cells that, clear things out, protect the body. And of course, when we don't get that, so if you can avoid 4 hours, you've really got to do it. We've got to think long term. What are we doing to our health? And nothing is worth it. So
if we have those compromised nights, surely we are able to get our bodies back into a good position. Otherwise, we're kind of doomed, aren't we?
We're not doomed, because we are continuing to improve our sleep. It's if you stay at it. Now, you can't get the sleep loss that you've lost, but the subsequent sleep you're going to have, you're going to build on that, and that's going to build for whenever. It's like Margaret Thatcher, for example. She had 4 hours sleep, and there's lots of other people who, Joe Basil, what's he called? John Basil. Basil was asked, how does he make his best decisions? Immediately he said, a good night's sleep. With Thatcher, Margaret Thatcher, she died of dementia and Alzheimer's, and that's because her poor sleep continued over the years of poor sleep, led to this buildup of the peptide beta amyloid, which we know it forms like plaque on the brain. So every night we don't get enough sleep, there is a buildup of that plaque. We leave a little bit more and a little bit more. So we do need to be looking at how we are sleeping. So yes, it's not that we get it back, but it's that we don't compromise the sleep moving forward. But we mustn't think that, okay, we're going to have a week of really terrible work where our sleep is only going to be 3 or 4 hours each night, or 5 or 6 hours each night. But it's okay, I can sleep next week and make it up. Your body doesn't. Your internal organs, the brain, the kidneys, the liver, it does not make it up. This is why we're seeing so much, diabetes and heart disease. The body doesn't make it up. Sorry, that's a really, really depressing note, isn't it? But it's true. The evidence is really, really there for everyone. And on that depressing note, I think we need to move on quickly.
Well, we have to finish super quickly, so I'm going to race through these next 3.
Do you want to, shall I just send you the answers and we just go through a few things in the slides? What do you think?
I can definitely share the answers, and if you're happy, Julie, to share the presentation as well for anyone, we will have this recorded so everyone can watch it. But I think we're going to have to go because I know some people have already dropped off because I think they've got extra meetings. So is there anything quickly, Julie, you want to end on? As a parting gift.
Just looking at sleep hacks, really look at your routine, and 3-2-1 is quite helpful. 3 hours before you go to bed, stop eating. Let 3 hours, your meal be 3 hours, or your last thing that you eat 3 hours before you go to bed. 2 hours before you go to sleep, come off all screen times, if that is possible. And then 1 hour before you go to bed, make sure that the lighting is completely dimmed, because this is going to send the correct timing and signal to the brain in preparation for sleep. So think about that framework, 3-2-1. 3 hours, stop eating. 2 hours, what did I say, 2 hours? Make sure you're all still listening.
Screen time.
Really, really important. And then 1 hour.
Dim the lights.
Dim the lights. Turn the lights down.
Hugely important, hugely important. Okay, I hope this has been helpful to you. It didn't quite go the way we wanted, but I'm sorry. I'm just, as you can see, I hope, very enthusiastic about sleep.
Yeah. Thank
Too
you
much
so
knowledge.
Much. Just a
That's the thing.
fountain of knowledge. Thank you so much. Amazing.
You're welcome. Thank you too. And I've loved your engagement and loved your questions.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.